have awoken from our slumber.
Shut the fuck up and let's get this started. RPGs, what a wonderful video game genre. There's so much to these games that are very unique to this genre in particular that makes a lot of people love them much more than others. Even if they might not have as much gameplay as some other genres in existence, that doesn't stop RPGs from having some of the most clever mechanics and also some really good storytelling.
If you ask us though, Japan is notorious for making games in the RPG genre, and to this day pull out amazing RPGs continuously out of their asses. Some of which have amassed huge fan bases all over the world, such as Final Fantasy, Breath of Fire, and Shin Megami Tensei, among others. I think it's time to praise these games for the amazing characters and stories we've gotten out of them.
So, it's time to bring out our inner weeaboo because we're gonna suck Japan's dick so much throughout this video and adore all of the shitty or mediocre animes they've spawned with their gaming culture as well. We should also mention that this list is not gonna be ordered. It's just gonna be us talking about our favorite RPGs in order to avoid disputes. Just thought I should point that out.
So, ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, ikimasho!
Don't ever do that again, you spineless maggot!
Ah yes, Mega Man Battle Network. Out of all the generations of Mega Man, this is hands down my favorite. It brought a great twist to the RPG genre with its unique combat style battle system, the interesting variations of net navis, most of which being based off of robot masters from the original series, and it's even got its own charming set of story and characters to go with. When it comes to the best game of the series, I think most of us can agree that the second game definitely takes the cake. Now the first game, while it is a pretty good game, it still is very experimental. This is apparent since the net layout is kinda basic and stale, and the overall poor difficulty balancing make most of the bosses very easy to beat. Thankfully though, Battle Network 2 fixed all of that. The net layout here is hell of an eye candy, most of the bosses are very challenging yet still manage to be really fun to fight, and you're given the option to escape virus battles anytime you wish. And let's not to forget, the new soundtracks for the net overworld and the net battles gave the game a much more upbeat feel. All of this made the game generally more fun and engaging than the first game had ever been. The game also brought in some new mechanics to the table, such as the use of sub-chips for circumstances outside of battle, the multiple forms of style change which gives you greater elemental and tactical advantages outside of using battle chips, and even added in side quests which gives the game a lot more of a replay value. Not to mention, this game has a very solid net navi roster. Dare I say, the best in the series. There's the adorable yet tricky Cutman, the defensive epicness that is Gateman, the majestic ninja assassin Shadow Man, the ridiculously powerful Magnet Man, and everyone's fan favorite, Bass. The setup of this game is surprisingly pretty hardcore. The villain syndicate Gospel is generally far more dangerous than World 3 from the previous game, the character development between Lan and Mega Man is taken through pretty harshly at times, and there are multiple variations of strange dangers and disasters that happen, such as net crystallizing, castle traps, and hell, even multiple acts of terrorism. And of course, there's a bunch of nationalism and highly unfriendly dialogues. Yeah, how is this game rated E again? With all that said, Battle Network 2 is definitely the most daring game in the series, and it certainly paid off. Solid gameplay, hardcore story, and a strong improvement over its predecessor. What else is there to say? It's a fantastic sequel and a fantastic RPG. The best that Battle Network has to offer.
Considering this is JRPGs we're talking about, you should expect a Pokemon game somewhere on this list, especially since it is my favorite franchise of all time. We all know how awesome and fun the main series is, but I feel like I should give the spin-offs some well-deserved love, especially the Mystery Dungeon games. The basic story of the series involves a human who for some strange reason turned into a Pokemon, which is usually determined through an honestly pretty fun personality test, and lost their memories in the process and meets another Pokemon who eventually becomes their partner and go off exploring dungeons with randomly generating floor maps every time we revisit. The first game, Red and Blue Rescue Team, was pretty solid, with a great story, fantastic characters and decent visuals, but the gameplay does get repetitive and tedious after a while, and the side missions don't have much variety, most of them being either rescue missions or escort missions. But then the second game, Explorers of Time and Darkness, comes in and fixes everything that was bad about the first game and makes all the good stuff about the first game work and feel even better. As I mentioned earlier, you play as a human who just turned into a Pokemon and lost their memories on top of that. Don't worry, it's not one of those amnesiacs. And you meet your partner Pokemon, join a guild led by the ever so hilarious and random Guildmaster Wigglytuff, and explore all kinds of beautiful and, dare I say, mysterious dungeons. Get it? Cause it's the title of the game? I'll quit the rape jokes now. In all seriousness, the story is simply put, brilliant. It has a bunch of light-hearted moments as expected from an E-rated game, as well as some really dark moments that make you question the E-rating of this game, and also a few massive tearjerkers that will make sure to leave your home flooded with tears. The dungeons are still kinda boring at times, but thankfully not as much as the first game, mostly due to having a lot more to do in this game. Despite the rescue missions and escort missions returning, this game puts a lot more emphasis on exploring dungeons, hence the title of the game. As some of the new side missions involve searching for hidden treasure, exploring uncharted territory, and even stopping dangerous baddies, which makes the gameplay feel a bit less repetitive, but still remain as addictive as the first game. Also, the graphics are absolutely gorgeous for a DS game, especially during certain cutscenes where they're just like, wow. The soundtrack is also something to be praised, being very memorable and perfectly fitting to the situation you're currently in, like Temporal Tower, Crystal Cave, Quicksand Cave, the August fight to the finish, and especially Don't Ever Forget, which packs a gigantic emotional punch to the face! Overall, Pokemon Mystery Dungeon 2 is everything a great JRPG should be. Amazing story, great gameplay, even if it's a little tedious at times, a huge cast of very colorful and lovable characters,
Apart from these wankers!
and also a shit ton of replay value, especially in the updated Explorers of Sky, which has several side stories that flesh out some of the supporting characters even more than the main story. Honestly, it really boggles my mind that such an outstanding game gets such mediocre scores from critics everywhere. Now this shitty excuse for a JRPG gets to be on the same level as these masterpieces, let alone created by the same people. Thanks, Mondo.
Have you ever played a game, thought it was kinda meh, and then played the sequel and had the reaction of, holy fucking shit, this is 10 times better? Because that, ladies and gentlemen, was my experience with Kingdom Hearts 2. Kingdom Hearts 2 took everything the first game did right, buffed them up with greatness, and then added its own flair, and boom! The result was legendary. The game takes place after Chain of Memories, you know, the one we all try to forget, and continues Sora's journey to save everything from darkness, with the added inclusion of Nothingness, featuring Organization 13 as our new baddies this time around. The combat system was updated a fuck ton, with the addition of reaction commands, proper combos, and drive forms. It's never felt so satisfying to take down literally everything in sight in the most stylish manner since Devil May Cry 3. The Disney worlds in KH2 are also a ton more unique, with additions such as the Pride Lands, Port Royal, and, well, New Atlantica.
Swim along, just join in the song, a musical for everyone to have a lot of finny fun.
Also, by the way, the soundtrack for KH2, done by Yoko Shimomura, is the absolute greatest gift from the music gods we've ever received. Ever. Of all time. Ever. Overall, if I had to sum up KH2 in a single sentence, it would easily be:
This is a sequel! This is a fucking sequel!
It's funny how I've never appeared or have been mentioned in a Gaming Family Countdown before now. So, Golden Sun Dark Dawn. I freaking love this game! So where do I begin with Golden Sun? It's one of the most nostalgic and my favorite RPGs my entire childhood. And when I heard they were making a sequel on the DS, you better believe I had a freaking nostalgia stroke at the thought of seeing all the wonders of the previous installments with updated graphics and even more polished gameplay. Let's start with the presentation. Now obviously this game is a huge step up from the previous installments when it comes to design and graphical prowess, but that's not to say the original two didn't have jaw-dropping animation and parts that really tested the GBA's graphics engine. They did, but this game obviously beats them when it comes to initial presentation. Some of the landscapes and just overall design of most of the places you visit in this game is just perfect. The music, the character design and atmosphere, the colors, it's just awesome. Clearly a lot of effort was put into this part of the game. Along with the initial presentation of the game, there is my personal favorite part of the game, and what Golden Sun is mostly known for, its battle system. Now before I get to why the battle system is so well remembered, let me just say they drastically improved the battling system from the other two games. The battles are faster and more interesting. It even changed the problem from the first game where if you target one enemy with two characters, the other one lost a turn. Not anymore. This motherfucker just wrecks everyone else. Some may say the battle system is just like every other RPG. And to that I have an idiom from my forefathers.
If it ain't broke, don't fix it.
Well, I'll turn to John Wayne. Now, poor grammar aside, it still holds true. While the battle system on the surface isn't anything new, it still gets the job done and still remains to be extremely entertaining. But that's not the best part. The best part of the battle system is the Djinn. The Djinn are basically the Pokemon of the Golden Sun series. Well, more like a weird combination of Pokemon and the summons from Final Fantasy. They are amazing 34 summons available in this game. And some of the Djinn that can be summoned include a colossal whale with a freaking laser beam attached to its head. Satan. Whatever the hell that is. And my personal favorite, a giant night dragon train that smashes through a mountain before causing a freaking earthquake. I would like to talk about more, but I have a future list for all these summons. But for now, let's just say they're the highlight of the game for me. And finally, let's try to go over the story, because goddamn, this game is long. Dark Dawn begins 30 years after the conclusion of the Lost Age, where I'm not going to spoil what exactly happens there, but basically everything is now, well, weird. It's quite fascinating to see how realistic the heroes are treated in this game. Some praise them for how they technically saved the world, while others treat them as monsters for causing the world to shift and practically setting off the end of the world sooner or later. Anyway, our heroes are Matthew, Tyrell, and Karis. They go on an adventure to save the world from the mysterious antagonistic nation Tueparang. A problem I have with the overall story is that on the surface, it's just another RPG plot. Heroes go on an adventure, face many villains while losing and getting more party members, all while trying to stop the main villains from getting some kind of ancient artifact to rule or destroy the world. That's basically what the game boils down to, but at the same time, this repetition doesn't seem to bother me as much as it does with other games. Now why is that? I've had to think about this for a long time before I finally came to the realization of just what made this game so perfect to me, and that is the way the plot is presented. I said before how realistically they treated the heroes in the game. The entire plot is like this. You don't know everything. There are characters you never meet. Hell, the main antagonist only mentioned a few times and is never shown throughout the majority of the game. But at the end of the day, the story, the characters, the gameplay, the atmosphere, everything. This game is wonderful. I highly recommend this to any RPG fan or anyone in general who wants to experience a great game. So yeah, I'm Anime Hoodie. I'll see you guys like another year or something. Fuck, I don't know. I'm gonna play some fucking Dark Dawn. I'm gonna get my sideburns fully back. God, the game's damn good. Kid, I'm hungry. Shut up, Dr. Faker!
I find it rather interesting that one of the best series to look to in regard to JRPGs is Mario. I mean, who'd expect that?
Mario was originally created as a platformer, no shit, to help the new and upcoming console, the NES, from a fledgling company known as Nintendo. But why am I telling you this? You're on the gaming family where most of the shit we talk about is Nintendo. I think you get it. However, in the mid-90s with the release of the N64, a new type of Mario game was made. One that tried things that no other had before, besides the one on the SNES. But we're not talking about how badly there needs to be a sequel to Super Mario RPG, we're talking about Paper Mario. But here's the thing. After the amazing success of the original, they followed it up with one of the greatest games ever given to us by the god of gaming himself, Paper Mario and the Thousand-Year Door.
I'm going to go on record here and say that this is not only one of the best JRPGs ever made, but also one of the best GameCube games ever made. Seriously, it kicks major ass.
Nintendo had a pretty good thing going with the original Paper Mario. The entire formula really worked. It seemed to click and made all of us think, man, why wasn't this made before now? It seemed like everyone and their mothers loved it. So it's pretty obvious what you should do with this scenario. Just make a new game with a new story and build on that original formula. But you should know by now that Nintendo always does more than that. Except with Sticker Star. That game sucked. But since this was the time before the 3DS and whatever idiots made that game, Thousand Year Door is amazing.
This is because not only did they build on the original formula, but they actually expanded it greatly and made it something really spectacular.
This game improved on a lot of things coming from the original, but the most impressive and important has got to be with the story. Don't get me wrong, the N64 one was pretty good, but this is like with what happened between No More Heroes and No More Heroes 2. It's a bit more stylized, more nuanced, and a bit more with chopping heads off. Okay, it's not a perfect analogy. You're just not rescuing fucking stars, so it's an improvement in my book. Not to mention that the partners in this are way more interesting and have some great backstories. I mean, Vivi alone, she's probably one of the best characters in the entire Mario series.
Let me just say it like this. Paper Mario and the Thousand Year Door is one of the best GameCube games ever made, one of the best games ever made, and of course, one of the best, not just J, but RPGs ever made. So, is there really anything else to say? Go play it. Now!
The Tales series has always been known for having a generally enjoyable cast of characters, mature story, and excellent combat system. A lot of them could have easily been chosen for this list, but since I want to get the series out there, I chose what's now the most accessible game in the series, Tales of the Abyss. After the disaster, known as Tales of Legendia, Abyss went back to the combat system that made Tales of Symphonia as amazing as it is, using a combination of normal attacks and arcs, not unlike a 2D fighting game. And, while it's not as fast and fleshed out as Vesperia and Xilia's combat systems, it's still a lot of fun and keeps it simple. And with some certain items you get throughout the game, you can do some pretty crazy combos. Every character has their own abilities that make them incredibly useful in combat, making almost every single kind of party excel at something, leading to a really balanced system. Speaking of the characters, this game's cast is, well, really good. Luke has some of the most development I've ever seen in a main character, Jade is godlike troll, we have a really good group of rival antagonists, and everyone else have their own quirks that come to life thanks to this game's well-done voice acting. For the most part, and localization, minus the skits not being voiced in English. Complete with an extensive world, story, and Mitoy Sakuraba soundtrack, you have a great game that is now more accessible than ever, now at the PS2 version is put on 3DS. A great entry point to a great series.
Now, out of all the games I've played in my life, and JRPGs in general, Earthbound is one that will always stick out to me as my favorite, just for how quirky it is. Now, for one, this game came out at a time that JRPGs really weren't that big outside of Japan. What really separates this from many JRPGs, though, is unlike being in a somewhat futuristic or very medieval and fantasy-like setting, this game takes place in modern 90s America. And the story doesn't take itself serious in the slightest. I don't even know what to consider a plot, but I guess I'll explain it. One day our main character Ness wakes up from a meteor and his neighbor Porky wakes him up to ask Ness to help find his brother, only to after find him, see a fly come out of the meteor and tell Ness he is the chosen one and he must find 8 melodies scattered across the globe in order to save the world with 3 others against an evil threat named Gygus in the past. Trust me, it gets weirder and there are some dark themes in this game including sacrificial references. And also, even though the gameplay is very similar to many RPGs at the time, there is one thing I really love about it that is honestly something that I wish I would see more in RPGs. See, the HP goes down at small percentages thanks to it being somewhat like a pachinko machine where if you're hit with a really hard attack and say you're at 200 HP, you'll have some decent amount of time to go and heal yourself before that instead of it instantly going away like a snap of the fingers. Now, what also makes this my personal favorite RPG is the fact that when I got this game, it was when I really needed help mentally and emotionally. Long story short, I was going through really bad puberty and it screwed me up mentally and emotionally, and this game made me really happy, and it still does no matter how down I'm feeling. Now, I would go more onto it about that, but I really don't want to make this sappy. Well, if only Nintendo would love this series as much as its fans and bring a game
Trinity Universe is a crossover JRPG produced by NIS, Idea Factory and Gus Corporation, exclusively for the PS3. There are two stories, each following the two main characters, Kanata, the Demon Dog King, and Roselia, the Valkyrie. Following Kanata's story shows his adventure on how he avoided becoming a Demon God Gem, and instead becomes a Demon Dog King. He now leaves his home for the first time and desperately tries to find other ways to protect his town. Whereas Roselia's story focuses more on her character development as she tries to get Kanata to become the Demon God Gem, as she believes that's the only way to protect the town. Other characters include the bitch Tsubaki, my cinnamon roll of a character Lucius, Trash Tier Receipt, Miu who's just... and Mizuki who's cool I guess. Oh, and there's Suzuki too, but can't really explain him in a few words. He's... unique, to say the least. Got a solid cast of original characters right there, but it doesn't stop quite yet. Triuni features a couple of characters from NIS and Gus respectively, including Etna, the Prinnies, Flan, Violet, and Pamela. The characters are definitely where this game stands out, and I love every character here. The plot, on the other hand, is all comedy. Being made by NIS, this game isn't made to be taken seriously at all. It has that disguised sense of humor that I just can't hate.
This is neither a cowlick nor an antenna! It is my tension gauge! Small threat? I'm the Dark Hero! I'm at least a Final Dungeon sub-boss!
No! You'll never gain the privilege of getting animated! I'm far more charismatic and family-friendly, Etna.
Your name reminds me of garbage!
I think Lucius developed schizophrenia due to the polar opposite personalities between real life and this preview.
No, this isn't me. I'm not this. We're not me. I'm not you!
As for the gameplay itself, it's typical dungeon crawling stuff. However, the combat is done rather uniquely compared to a lot of other JRPGs I know of. It still has the turn-based formula, sure, but instead of casting moves and just watching, you're pressing buttons stringing along combos until your AP runs out. The square button is your multi-hit attack, the X button is your strong attack, and the triangle button is your magic attack. Each move costs a certain amount of AP, which differs for each character. However, by skipping your turn, you can stack AP to unleash longer combos. By either pressing a combination of buttons or just mashing them, there are also certain combo skills, some unique to the respective character. Oh, and of course the super moves too, which are super flashy, and of course they do a buttload of damage. The soundtrack is also pretty good. While the cutscene music is nothing too special and the main theme can get stuck in your head, for better or worse, the battle music is where this game stands out. Abandoned and Perilous Nation are easily the highlights here. Just listen to this stuff. Lastly, I have to praise this game's voice cast. Michelle Ruff and Sandy Fox return as their roles as Etna and Flan, Sam Riegel as Kanata, Mela Lee as Roselia, Bryce Papenbrook as Lucius, and on top of all that, the legendary Troy Baker as Suzuki. I gotta say, one of my personal favorite voice casts right here. In a nutshell, I love this game a lot more than I should actually. I love it because of its unique combat, its cast of characters, as well as voice cast, how much it doesn't take itself seriously, its humor, and the overall charm it has to me. I'd highly recommend this to any JRPG fan, especially those who are just looking for a good time.
Since I can't think of a clever way to lead into the reveal of this candidate, I'll just go the easy route. The next candidate is Square Enix's Super Nintendo masterpiece, Chrono Trigger. Being a big fan of both the Final Fantasy series and the element of time in media, you'd think I'd end up talking about this game more often. Well, I guess that works to my advantage, since I now have more to talk about for this video. So let's start by talking about the most important part of a JRPG, the story. Chrono Trigger's plot focuses on a boy named, well, Chrono, who witnesses the creation of a time portal during the testing of his friend Luca's teleportation device. He goes into the time portal to save Marl, the girl who had volunteered for the test run, and what starts as a simple journey 400 years in the past to find Marl ends up turning into a quest across multiple periods of time to stop the alien creature Lavos from bringing the apocalypse onto the world. Along the way, Chrono, Mara, and Luca end up joining several other characters from different time periods, including the medieval swordmaster Frog, the post-apocalyptic cyber warrior Robo, and the prehistoric war chief Ayla. All of these characters are quite unique from one another, each being given distinct traits that make them useful in battle and overall interesting characters. Speaking of battles, let's talk about the gameplay. Chrono Trigger is a turn-based RPG, but unlike the Super Nintendo Final Fantasy games, it contains real-time combat animations. In other words, instead of your party members just standing in a line and hitting the enemy, your party members and sometimes your enemies will actually move around during attacks. For turn-based RPGs in 1995, this was pretty much unheard of. Actually, in general, Chrono Trigger has gone down in history as a game changer. Literally. It included a lot of revolutionary ideas for both RPGs and gaming as a whole, such as multiple endings and side quests with a focus on character development. I mean, as a whole, Chrono Trigger is a fantastic RPG and still stands as one of my all-time favorite games, but these innovative aspects that it brought to the table really helped make it that much more memorable. Add on some beautifully detailed sprite work and an astonishing soundtrack composed by then-newcomer Yasunori Mitsuda and Final Fantasy's very own Nobuo Uematsu, and you've got yourself a true staple in the RPG genre. Oh yeah, and the game turned 20 years old this year. Care to do something about that, Square Enix?
Final Fantasy IX is an amazing game, and I feel like this is the most real Final Fantasy out of all of them. There's references everywhere to older Final Fantasies, so it brings back the non-futuristic feel that 7 and 8 had. So I love everything about this game, to be honest, and there's so much worth noting. The god-tier cast of characters, the amazing music which is expected from a Final Fantasy game, the awe-inspiring locations throughout the game, the nostalgic feel of the entire game as a whole, and of course, Steiner's sweet, rusty ass. What's not to love? This game just brings back a sense of wonder that no game has ever put out before to me personally. And if you did play this game as a little diaper-wearing idiot, then you will know what I mean when I say that this game as a whole has that amazing feel of nostalgic wonder that very few games have. It may just be me talking from my ass, but the further I get into this game, the more magical it gets. And it certainly is a lovely feeling that I will never forget, and that I can still play today, even after my 19th playthrough of it. The game isn't very short either, and at no point does it lose its fantastic charm, because this is a game for the ages, and an experience that I don't think I will relive with any other game. Everyone has their own opinion on their favorite Final Fantasy game, of course, and this is mine by far, and I would recommend this to anyone who is interested in getting into Final Fantasy, because it has a little bit of every Final Fantasy game thrown in there, and I promise you that you will fall in love with it. Not only does it have my favorite pretty much everything, but the combat system is very easy to get used to, and it's just kind of fun because even as a turn-based RPG, it doesn't get boring at any point because the equip system actually did something that I thought was very fun to play around with, and actually makes random encounters do more than just help you grind. But it also helps you get new skills the more you use certain weapons, and it's all just a blast. Especially when the areas are also jaw-dropping and there's not a single location that will slip out of your mind, because the world of Gaia is by far the best in Final Fantasy history, in my honest opinion. And I just love it so much. So yeah, have I fanboyed enough of this game already? Because this game is so close to perfect to me, and that's all I can really say as a closing argument.